Hello, everybody. Shane Lee here with TAAPS. That's Texas Acknowledgement and Awareness and Preservation of Sasquatch. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and also find us on Facebook, which you can use the Facebook icon on the YouTube channel. This is another great audio interview that also includes audio vocals that were recorded. I've been really excited about getting this one done and out. This is one of my favorite interviews, and the investigator himself is also a member of TAAPS. Would like to stay anonymous, so of course we're going to respect that. But he's got a great story here from beginning to end. You just don't want to miss this one. It's over an hour long, and I understand a lot of people don't have time, but for this one, you can just click play and listen. It's filled full of audio vocals that have been recorded from the Sam Houston National Forest as well as Caddo grasslands. They're going to include howls, roars, whoops, up down vocals, whistles. It's chopped full of audio, and excellent audio at that. And not to mention, we spend countless days, or I spend. Not to mention, I spend days going through this audio. You guys have no idea how long it takes unless you do it yourself. But to pinpoint every little vocal and pull it out and analyze it and try to amplify and clean a little bit, it's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. So I'd appreciate listening to the whole thing, and trust me, you won't be disappointed in this. This is good stuff. And what we'll do is we'll start this off with some vocals. From those vocals, we'll be going straight into the audio interview, and segments will be stopped and inserted with more vocals, and then on with the interview, and then more vocals, and it just goes on and on and on. This one is not going to disappoint, so sit back, relax. Unless you're driving, don't relax too much, and just take a good listen, and I hope you enjoy. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Shane at Church with Southern Bigfoot Alliance. You can find him on Facebook as well. He did some cleaning up of some audio, but you'll see going towards the end, and he really pinpointed some sounds that we were trying to isolate, and did a good job with it. So without further ado, let's get this thing going, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, I'm here with somebody who wants to stay anonymous, which is totally understandable. And had several interesting encounters, which started, when did they start? About last year? A year, 2 years ago?
2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago. Okay. And it actually started in the Sam Houston National Forest. And we're going to let him tell his stories, and I'll ask a couple of questions probably at the end so he can talk straight through it. It's some good stuff, so pay attention. So you can start at the beginning.
Okay, well, about 3 years ago, I've always loved camping. I've done camping since I was in my early 20s. I've always been a primitive camper, and got all my kids raised, and I found myself with a chance to take a long camping trip. And I've always been interested in Sasquatch, and I've always followed the stories and read the books and stuff, but I never for once believed, to me, Sasquatch was something that was in the Pacific Northwest. Well, I went camping in the Sam Houston National Forest. I'd like to keep the exact location quiet for obvious reasons. And I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm disabled, but I'm a little bit crippled up from what I did for a living. So my son met me out there to set up my big tent I have. We got set up, and it was just getting dark, and we had opened our first beer, and we heard a coyote pack make a kill across the street from us, or across the trail from us. And I know they was making a kill because I heard the thing they was killing being killed. Now it took so long, I was actually like, oh my God, would you please hurry up and kill the damn thing? And well, about the time they do, and the yipping and snapping and all that starts, 3 of the biggest, loudest whoops that you could ever imagine started down the trail and ended up with the coyotes. Within a span of the 3 whoops, it sounded like it traveled a couple hundred yards, got closer a couple hundred yards. By the time it got to the 3rd whoops, we could hear the coyotes taking off and getting out of there. I mean, they were gone. They didn't want no part of whatever was coming. The whoops were so loud that it rattled my chest. It rattled my insides. I looked at my son, and he looked at me, and we both, mid-beer to the mouth, just looked at each other with eyes the size of saucers. And of course, watching the shows and reading the books, I knew what it was instantly. But that started off a month-long ordeal. Well, for the next couple of days, it's really strange. My son and I, we actually didn't talk much at all about anything. And then on the 3rd day, I looked at him and I said, man, did I really hear? And he said, yeah, it really happened. And I was like, okay. And then, well, he had to leave 4 days later. And, you know, we heard howls that night, which were obviously way different than coyotes. And he had to leave 3 days later, and I was going to stay out there for a month, and he was going to come resupply me every week or 10 days or something, whatever it was supposed to be. And once I left, this was after hunting season, so I was in the woods alone. Once I left, or once he left, that's when stuff really started happening. Because I was back by an area of the Sam Houston National Forest that hunters and Sasquatchers that know the area I'm talking about call the swamp. and they would cross the river and come up out of the swamp and come back there towards that campsite that I was at, just acting a fool. Screaming, hollering, tearing up those sago palms and throwing them in the air. Apparently, they didn't like the fact that what I take from it is they were trying to scare me off, but I didn't have a phone or a car there, and so I couldn't be scared off. And I think it was aggravating them that it wasn't working because it kept getting more and more aggressive, closer and closer. One night, I had 3 trees pushed over within 45 minutes, all of them within maybe 100 or 200 feet of me. No wind. Um, it's just crazy stuff, just things you couldn't imagine. So at the end of this, it was getting more and more aggressive. They were getting closer and closer to me. At one point, they were probably only 20 or 30 feet away from me, tearing up sago palms and throwing them in the air and stuff. And I wasn't well armed or anything. I had a 22 and a 410. Well, I grabbed both and ran out into the middle of an area where I wasn't so close to the woods. And I stayed out there for 4 hours. I was so scared.
It's a long time.
That is for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And it was cold. I was away from the fire. I didn't even have a jacket on.
And by yourself.
And I was by myself this whole time. It wasn't but 2 days after that a big flood came. And they call it's a 100-year flood, of course, while I'm out there. And I got flooded out. I mean, I actually ended up with hypothermia before my son could come get me, before the water on the roads went down enough that he could come get me. But to be honest with you, ever since then, I have a great deal of antagonism towards Sasquatch because they terrorized me for a full 30 days. And they didn't have to do that because I wasn't out shooting my gun. I wasn't blundering through the woods, I wasn't doing anything. They just decided they didn't want me where I was. And
like, well, all the hunters left, so now it's time to get rid of this guy as well.
yeah. I don't know what it was, but it was intense. And then I told my cousin about it. I went back and I told everybody, but the only person, I guess, who believed me or who was interested. Oh, on a side note, my son said he's never spending the night in the National Forest again. He said, Dad, I'll go out there and meet you out there to set up your tent, but I'm never spending the night in the National Forest again.
Unfortunately, you get that a lot with people who experience for the first time. They don't want to go back into the woods.
Oh, going back also, during this time, I forgot this part, and this is kind of not humorous, but I would have done the same thing. I would have left too. If I could have left, I would have left. But I watched 4 different people pull up and start setting up their camp around twilight, and a Sasquatch let out a howl, and 2 of the people left their tent there and never came back and got it. The other 2 packed their tent up right real quick and left and never saw them again. And then in the middle of this was really funny, and I'm not trying to be racist, but this is exactly what happened. I was camped at the back, and someone pulled in there just gunning their motor, going around in circles. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I walk out, and this guy sees me, so he starts racing towards me in a little area like at 40 miles an hour. I'm thinking, this idiot's going to run me over and kill me. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. He slams on his brakes. A little Asian guy gets out. You have hawks here. And I said, what? And he said, you have hogs here. And I said, hogs? And he said, no, not hogs. And he swelled up his chest and put his arms out and he said, hawks. I'll never hunt here again. And he jumped.
H-U-L-K.
H-U-L-K. But I thought he was saying hogs because of his accent. And he jumped in his truck and gunned it out of there, tires squealing all the way out. And then at another time, the more I think about it, the more stories I have. There is another Sasquatcher. His name is Jeremy. He's been on Cryptic Connection, and I'm not going to give out his last name. He's been on several podcasts, not Cryptic Connection, but
Sasquatch Chronicles.
Sasquatch Chronicles. Matter of fact, they have a whole special of just his sightings and encounters. And then Strange Familiar podcast. And actually, I think on that one, he talks about some of the things that we experienced together. Well, we were down looking at something that I called a knot that Shane actually has footage of.
Oh, yeah.
It's obviously something very tall, tied. Anyway,
And I forget the name of that vine.
yeah,
It's
some
real,
kind
very
of
thick
vine.
wood vine.
Yeah, some kind of very thick woody vine had tied it into this very intricate knot, tying a stick up into the tree about 9 feet in the air with this. It's not something a human could do because I found the strongest human I know, which is my cousin who's 6'3" and over 300 pounds. He couldn't even bend the vine, let alone.
You can't break it.
No, you can't break it.
Mm-mm.
He couldn't bend it, let alone tie it into a knot.
Because we have found them snapped in half.
Yes.
And followed those to footprints. But we can't snap those.
No,
in half.
we can't snap them in half. So we're down there. I'm showing him this. He's taking pictures of it, and 2 young Cajun guys pull up, and it's getting dark. And they're getting ready to go in their boat, and I walked over to them and I said, "Hey guys, what's going on? You know, have y'all ever been here before?" And they're like, "No." And I said, "And you're going night fishing here?" Because that part there of the river, no one night fishes
Right.
there.
They all leave.
They all leave when it
At
starts
dusk.
getting that dark. You can attest to that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we're fine. I didn't want to come out and say, man, I wouldn't go down there if I was you. I mean, I didn't want to come out and say that, but the only thing I could think of to say is, well, at least you got a gun, right? And he said, yeah, I got a gun. He pulled up a shot. I was like, okay, all right. Well, we go back to camp, which is only maybe 500 yards from the river, and we hear their little boat put, 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 put. And at the very edge of the river, one Sasquatch starts howling the loudest I've ever heard. And then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And before you know it, you've got 5 Sasquatch howling all at the same time. And then all you hear is, whee! Them two Cajun guys punched that boat, turned it around. They didn't even tie their boat down on their trailer because it was bouncing and dragging all over the place on the way out of there. And I had a recorder sitting right there, and it was a little earlier than what I normally start recording. But I was laughing so hard I couldn't get to the recorder because it was damn hilarious. I mean, you would have had to have been there, okay? But anyway, Jeremy did record that. And Jeremy, if you're listening, I need a copy of that. But anyway, so I told my cousin about it, and then we went back the following month. I geared up. I got recorders, and I got all kinds of stuff, and we went back, and it rained for the first 6 days. My cousin's like, man, I only got a week's vacation. I said, well, a week's good enough because the time that I spent out there, I figured that I figured out that the Sasquatch there, anyway, I can't speak of any place else, but there, they have like a territory, and that area is part of their territory, and they come back around it about every 5 to 7 days. And when they come around there, they act like a fool, and you can record them and all that. So if you go there and stay 7 days, unless it's raining the whole time, you're gonna have some crazy stuff happen. So I bring my cousin back. First 6 days it's raining. I'm like, oh really? And he's looking at me like, okay, man, all right. So the day before he has to leave, the sun brightens. I mean, the skies clear up. It's a bright night. We walk down the trail back by the swamp, turn off the light, and we're sitting down there talking very quietly. Let me back up a little bit. And the reason why we walked down there is because I heard them crossing the river again. Now, my cousin is half deaf in one ear and has some partial hearing loss in another from jackhammering from 30 years ago before they provided PPE for people. So he wasn't hearing the things that I was hearing. I heard him cross the river. I heard him come up out on into the swamp. So that's why we walked back there. I turned off the flashlight. We're sitting there and we're talking, and all of a sudden it sounded like maybe 20 feet away, someone hit a hardwood tree with the Louisville Slugger. And we're like, okay, let's go back to the camp now. So we start heading back to the camp, and about 30, 45 seconds into our heading back to the camp, there's another knock on our right. So we get back to, we pick our speed up at this point. We're moving along. And we get back to camp, and then Jeremy, the other Sasquatcher, happened to just be there. And he walked by, he's like, did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? And we was like, yeah, we heard it, but we thought it was you. He said, no, that wasn't me. I thought it was you. And then right when he said that, from his camp, where he was camped at, came the biggest, loudest knock of all. And there is no way that was one Sasquatch moving hundreds of yards from here to there to there to there to there.
Short period of time.
We were being herded, is what was happening. I mean, it was very obvious, some kind of hunting technique or a technique to get us out of an area they didn't want us in. So that area is important to them for some reason, because I've been back there several times, and the same stuff always happens.
As a matter of fact, we found several prints back there
yes.
as well.
Yeah, so they don't want you at this particular campsite back by the swamp. They don't want you near the swamp. They don't want you at this campsite. If you stay there long enough, they're going to try to drive you away. And if you don't get driven away, they're going to get pretty serious about it.
Yeah, on the next two clips, the first one is me and this individual that's being interviewed right now. We are in the Sam Houston National Forest, January this year, 2020. And it's a good example of what you hear going on around you, because these Sasquatch vocals are just going on just pretty close to us, very close, and kind of all around us. And you kind of hear us go quiet as we just listen to it. But the main thing is just remaining calm. I mean, we've been through it so many times that it just becomes a natural thing. But regardless, it's still exciting every time it happens. And immediately after that clip, well, the second clip, will be us, one of us, and I don't remember who did it, did a vocal of our own. And what we didn't realize was we got a response about 60 seconds later, but we didn't actually hear it. We didn't actually know that we got the response until we went over the audio at a later date. And so you'll hear our vocal that we do, and then you'll hear a highly amplified part where we get the response. We had to amplify it because the response was so faint. But once we did amplify it, you're really able to hear it. And then from there, we'll just play some more clips.
I don't know. Well, it sure as hell been fucking with that.
Well, then my cousin, that's kind of a ride for me where I live now, the Sam Houston. So my cousin started looking at areas in his area and actually got advice from Paul Ragsdale as to who is a member of TAAPS. And so is my cousin, so am I. Shane's the founder and leader, of course. Uh, Paul Ragsdale gave my cousin some good advice as to where to go, look for a good place. And we talked about what we're looking for and all that. And he found a wonderful place because we came out here for a 6 or 7. I usually won't go someplace less than 7 days because I figure if the Sasquatch and Sam Houston are on a 5 to 7 schedule or 5 to 7 day schedule, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 5 to 7 day schedule, then maybe the rest are too. So if you stay a week and there's supposed to be Sasquatch there, you'll probably encounter or hear or something. You'll figure it out within a week if there's activity or not.
Yeah, that's the big mistake a lot of people make when they go squatching. They're new at it. Is they'll go out for one night, maybe two, and nothing happens, and they're thinking, nope, not squatchy,
No.
and they'll leave.
Well, so the second to the last night that we're here, no, actually it was the last night that we're here. And Shane has the audio of this. Unfortunately, my recorder has been through hell, and Shane can attest to this. Has been just drenched, poured, rained on 1,000 times. So there's garble through the bottom of the audio, but we're trying to get it cleaned up. But I got audio from here, and I could hear it plain as day, of 2 hound dogs.
Oh, this is the cattle grassland.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, y'all. This is the cattle grasslands. This is a different spot. I've got audio of 2 hound dogs chasing a Sasquatch. And you can hear the Sasquatch howling and yelling and screaming at them. This audio goes on for, what would you say, an hour altogether? 45
very
minutes?
Close to that, yeah.
Okay. And if you listen to it in its totality, it tells a story of what's going on. Because towards the end, you hear 3 real rapid fire gunshots, and it's not from a shotgun, so it's not a hunter. It's not from a rifle. It sounded like a handgun. Bam, bam, bam. And then you can hear a truck getting out of there. But the dogs keep going, and the Sasquatch keeps going. Well, about 5 minutes later after that, I guess, either the Sasquatch led the dogs to a bigger Sasquatch, or the Sasquatch just got tired of it.
Well, that's what we were thinking, and of course, it's just theory at this point.
It's just theory. Everything's
we thought that
theory.
It was chasing a juvenile Sasquatch.
Yes.
And because you could hear the difference in tone once it got to its location, which could have been daddy or mama, but
You can hear at one point, towards the end of the audio, you hear what is obviously a very extremely loud, angry roar, and then you hear the end of the 2 dogs, and then it's absolute silence.
that's quick too.
And it's just like they don't even got really a chance of a yelp. It's just like you hear all the air go out of the dogs as all their bones are being broke or something, and it's kind of a graphic audio. It really is.
Well, that's what happened, you know.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened.
That's what sounds like it happened.
All right, so the following 3 clips are what he is referring to with the hound dogs possibly tracking a Sasquatch or Sasquatches, depending on how you look at it or how you listen to it. It's very, very interesting, very exciting, very compelling audio. These first 3 clips are in order, and they are just slightly amplified, slightly cleaned. Exactly preceding those 3 clips are another 3 clips which are exactly the same, but they have been highly cleaned with the sounds isolated. And we'd like to give a big shout out and thanks to Shane Church with the Southern Bigfoot Alliance. If you're not on his group yet, you need to go visit it. That's Southern Bigfoot Alliance on Facebook. He's a great friend and great investigator as well, and he did some great work on isolating these sounds, so we appreciate that.
But I by no means am claiming to be an expert on Sasquatch. There are no experts on Sasquatch.
Right.
Okay, everything is hypothesis and theory. But there's just some things that happen that the only thing that makes sense is that it's Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's about a synopsis of my Sasquatch encounters. Oh,
You
my
gotta tell
sighting.
about the
My sighting.
Yeah.
I had a sighting at the cattle grasslands. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, full broad daylight. It was at a distance. I don't even want to hazard a guess. I'd say maybe 100 yards. Saw it walking through the trees, and that put me back into shock.
Yeah, and what did you tell me when you told me about the county? You said
They're
one
bigger
thing.
than you think they are.
Yeah.
Because they're bigger than I thought they were. The one I saw was a lot bigger than 8 foot tall. And you have to realize I was a professional. For what I did for a living for many, many, many years, I had to eyeball things as to how wide they were. Mm-hmm. Is it 7 feet? Is it 8 foot 6 inches? Whatever. I'm not even going to hazard a guess to how big this thing was, but it was big enough that my first thought was, I need a bigger gun. And then my second thought was, they're bigger than you think they are. Mm-hmm. And then my cousin who was with me was like, what is wrong with you, man? And I wouldn't even tell him what I saw for a good 30 minutes because, to be honest with you, I didn't want to go over there. It was that big. When we finally did work up the nerve to go over there, or I did, he was ready to go then. He's a big old guy. I'm a little more fragile than he is. But when he finally drugged me over there, the strongest smell of what smelled like if, say, you had urinated, excuse my language, but you had urinated in a gallon milk jug and then set it out in the sun for a week and then spread it all over the place.
That's potent.
And it was very foul, and it wasn't emanating from any one place. It was the whole area was stinking like that. To be sure, because the ground was kind of wet, I even stuck my face close to the ground to see if it wasn't a rotten vegetation smell, which can stink really bad.
Oh yeah,
and it wasn't. And well, we didn't know what to think about that. So this is the smell and the sighting all happened within about 30 minutes of each other. Let me go back to the sighting. It had bright red hair. I didn't really see girth, man. It was I saw a side profile.
but I mean, how massive the chest was and stuff.
It looked like a giant cousin it.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Right?
I mean, but bright red like a woman, like well, I'll save this description for the actual audio you can use.
A lot of other people have used it, cousin it.
But way bigger than you think. Because they talk about in Texas that we have small ones. If those are small ones, I don't want to see the big ones. If that's a small one, I'm quitting Sasquatching. I'm serious. So it's had a prolonged and lasting psychological effect on me. I'm obsessed with it now.
That's like an 8 foot. That's got to be over 8 foot though.
You
couldn't see its head.
Okay, back to the actual sighting itself. The best way I can describe it, and this is going to sound funny, but the best way I can describe it is a giant cousin it. Bright red, like if you look at a woman with the brightest red hair you've ever seen, and she just got out of the shower from shampooing and conditioning and blow drying her hair. It was really, really shiny. Now the sun was shining directly on it. So maybe it has an oily coat.
Sure.
Maybe it had just got out of the water. There is a lake right back here. I don't know what was going on, but it was really, really shiny. I watched it step between some trees. It traveled a great distance in 2 or 3 steps. It was within my field of vision. I can't be exactly sure. I'm going to start at about 2 seconds and go to between 2 to 4 seconds, but it was just so massive. There was no way I could have misidentified it as anything else. I saw it plain as day.
We don't have anything else in these woods that are that big.
That's walking on 2 legs.
Right.
The arms hung down below the knees. And actually, all I could see was the knees, from the knees up. I couldn't see the knees down.
Because they were covered with vegetation.
Because the
underground,
vegetation
right?
over there, I couldn't see because of the vegetation. But it was walking just inside the tree line and paying me, or us, no mind whatsoever.
So you basically saw from the knees up to the chest.
The knees up to the top of the
You couldn't
head.
see the head either.
I could see the head.
Oh, could you?
But
Oh,
from
okay.
side profile, I saw it from the side.
Okay.
All I saw was big mane of hair coming down to the shoulders, and then hair off the shoulder. I don't know if the length of any individual hair or anything like that, but the damn thing had a lot of hair. Okay, I mean, and it was bright, shiny red, and it's had a when you add everything together and some things that's happened recently on this trip. Uh, the sightings and the encounters, especially, are the one sighting, because I've only had one sighting, and let me go back and say, that was just blind luck finding that spot there at in the Sam Houston. It wasn't any skill involved. It was just that's where I was going to go camping because I had a canoe. It was easy access to the river. And it was a place my son knew that he could get to easy and all
And
that.
like you
so,
said, Sasquatch wasn't even on your mind. You
no.
thought, at that time, you thought it was a Pacific Northwest.
I thought Sasquatch was in the Pacific Northwest and Canada and maybe Alaska. I had
a lot of us
no
had the
idea.
same thought when we first started. Before we started, Pacific Northwest.
And I've told people this, but what I was going to say is this: it's had a lasting and profound psychological effect on me, to the point to where I'm equal parts obsessed and fascinated, and equal parts horrified, and equal parts antagonistic towards Sasquatch. Because Sasquatch terrorized me for a full month for no reason whatsoever. So that's, I take that personal. At first, I had to go home and for a good 2 or 3 weeks just kind of think, how do I want to do? I just never want to go back in the woods again?
How do you deal with it?
How do I deal with that afterwards? Because I love camping. So now I don't go camping. I go Sasquatching.
Right.
I bought a camera and I bought recorders and I bought things of that nature, and now and Sasquatching is 90% boredom and 10% being terrified.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's exactly what it is. So if you're not terrified at some point where you're at, the Sasquatch isn't around. So, and that's a synopsis. That's a short version without going into too much detail of my encounters
Right.
with Sasquatch.
Now, you weren't able to see any of the facial features of that one.
No
because of the
facial
side
features.
profile, and you just saw the hair.
I just saw the hair. I saw no facial features. The hands were, matter of fact, the hands were down past the knees, and I couldn't even. It really didn't swing his arms like on the Patty film. It's got that real pronounced swing of the arms. This one looked almost like it was trying to be sly.
Like
just kind of like he was kind of sneaking through or something. He wasn't. It wasn't like he was
just free walking.
It didn't seem like it was in a hurry or anything like that. It just seemed like it'd take a step, and then another step, and then another step, and then it was out of my field of vision. But it wasn't in a hurry. I mean, it seemed like Patty maybe was in a hurry, and she had her arms working. This one, there was not a lot of arm movement.
Well,
I could see the
why
arms
she was
moving.
in a hurry.
Yeah, exactly. But I promise you, I was no threat to that thing, because I wasn't getting up out of that chair.
That was an amazing encounter.
So,
and that was 10 minutes after you came into camp, wasn't it?
it was maybe an hour. We had just got our tent set up and set down, and I have the sighting. My cousin didn't see it because of where he was sitting. He was facing a different way than I was. And as soon as I saw it, he said, "What is wrong with you?" He thought I was having a stroke or something because my face must have contorted up. Because fear, panic, and disbelief all just went, that's
all rolled up
into one look on your face all at one time. I imagine it's probably what you look like when you're having a stroke or a brain aneurysm or something. I don't know, but I imagine that's what he was thinking. But Shane's got some, well, actually a lot of audio, and I think he's. What's your plans with it?
I'm gonna insert it with this audio
Okay.
interview here. It'll
And
be cut into segments, so
and then so that will back up what I'm saying, and especially if we can get the audio of the dogs and the Sasquatch, if we can get that garble cleaned out of there and get that clear, I'm even willing to pay somebody if there's somebody who is a true audio engineer to do it, because it's super impressive as it is. And if you was to get the garble and get it cleaned up,
it'd be beautiful.
it'd be beautiful. Yeah.
Which I already think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
I've listened to it and it's good. I've cleaned it up a little bit. But it's pretty amazing.
So that's my encounters.
So, a couple of questions. It was in Sam Houston National Forest when you first camped there and you were left there with no vehicle, no phone. What you said that was end of camping season, so it would have been end of January.
That was the end of January, and we went back at the end of February. I went home at the beginning of. I'm trying to remember exactly what the chronology of it was, but there were no hunters in the woods. They had all left because I had met them before this.
At the camp.
Yes, at the camp, and then that's when it really got wild when I was there by myself. It got, I guess I looked like easy prey.
Well, all the people with all the other guns had left.
Right.
So.
I mean, so if you try to pin me down on exact dates and stuff, I can't give exact dates, man.
I can't do that either. So don't worry about it. Yeah.
For 5 years, I thought I was a year older than I really was. So I mean, I don't know my grandchildren's birthdays, so when it comes to dates, it's kind of, I have to ask my kids all the time, what's so-and-so's birthday? So, so I don't forget them, but this stuff I'll never forget.
What time of the night do you think it was when that one you were talking about the coyotes made to kill?
Maybe 30 minutes after the sun went down.
Oh, that's early.
And that was only, it was within 50 or 75 yards of us. Because you could hear their feet moving on the ground, and so it was pretty close.
That was really close. Too close for comfort.
Yeah, well, the coyotes didn't bother me, but
for the Sasquatch.
the whoops. Like I said, I think my son and I were in a state of semi-shock or something for a couple days after that. Wow. Trying to process it.
And of course, we're going back out again for a month. This year, sometime in February maybe. That'll be good. So, probably towards the end of February. So hopefully we'll have a lot more to tell at that time. But, I really don't have any questions because you went into really good detail on everything. Really good detail. I mean, other than what was the weather like that night? Just cold and.
Yeah, I kind of figured out. See, and I was there and. I've spent almost 100 days and nights in the National Forest at that particular spot. So I kind of got an idea of when they're going to act out and when they're not. And again, I'm no expert at all, but I've been there long enough to, there's a pattern to what they're doing. It's not just random.
You're able to establish a pattern.
There's a pattern there. There is definitely a pattern going on there. In my experience, just like any other animal, if the wind is howling or it's raining, maybe they bed down or whatever, but you don't tend to hear the calls and stuff like you do. On bright nights, you tend to hear because and people say, "Oh, that's a coyote," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, man. Let me let you hear a coyote, okay? And then listen to this." And then tell me that's a coyote. Besides, not only that,
it's got a different signature on
Audacity. It has a way different signature on Audacity. So whatever it is, it's not a coyote.
Right.
I had it pointed out to me that the sounds that we're associating with Sasquatch may not be Sasquatch, and technically, that is true unless I hear whatever is making that sound. But when you rule out everything else, then what else could it be?
Yeah, what you're left with.
What you're left with. Because when I came back, I can't really take the heat. And the work I did was very brutal. I've had 4 heat strokes. So I only do this in the wintertime. So I got all summer to research stuff. And I started researching all the animals and the sounds that they make that are not just in the Sam Houston National Forest, but in Texas. And there is nothing that makes that sound. It's very obvious. If you hear a coyote and then you hear a Sasquatch call, it's very obvious they're different. Very obvious they're different. Super obvious.
The Sasquatch calls louder, longer.
It's more complex.
Different signatures.
It almost sounds like 2 voices
Yeah.
making one call, which is, it sounds really weird, but if you've ever heard it in person, that makes it has a weird echoey quality to it that a coyote call just doesn't have.
Plus the whoops. The whoops are very distinct.
Yeah.
You can't mistake that.
There is nothing out there. There is nothing in all of North America that is supposed to whoop. And we're not talking about whooping cranes, because I've listened to that, and that is not the same.
Then we got the up and down tones, the whistling. You know, it's the only thing out there that can whistle.
I've got audio
I'm not
of.
talking about birds, people. It's different.
Oh, and while we're at it, let's debunk a few things, okay? Shane and I have been talking about this. There are no experts, and I'm not an expert. Let's talk about structures. There is a structure over here, and we debated whether doing a video on it, and we were going to, but then we had a bunch of tourists show up. There is something that if you walked up on it, you're going to, and when I saw it, I said, oh my God, that's a beautiful structure. I got to videotape this.
Oh, it was. When you see it from a distance, you're like, this is going to be amazing.
Amazing.
But you got always check it out up close naturally.
It took us an hour, but we were able to account for every one of those branches and how they got there. But if you was just we could just take pictures of it and say, look at this structure we found. And anybody looking at it would agree that's a structure, but it's not.
Because you got to debunk it. You got to go through the logical explanations first.
If you go around with Sasquatch on the mind, and if you every time you go out you have an encounter, it just doesn't happen that way. Shane spends more time in the woods than not only anybody I know, but anybody that I've ever even heard of. And Shane will tell you he's not an expert.
No, God no.
You know, so
Have I learned a lot? Yeah, but I don't know nothing
No.
yet. It's just I know enough to get me to the right spots, to distinguish between certain kind of vocals and other vocals, distinguish footprints, getting to know double-stepped pig prints, deer
Yep.
prints. Rule out a lot of things, breaks, twists. Now, the twist out here that we found, the cedar twist, it's a very hard wood to twist.
Yeah.
You can't twist it. And
No.
if you guys think you can, well, feel free to go out there and find one. But you need to find one that's between 2.5 to 3 inches in diameter, because those are the ones that we found out here so far, and they are completely twisted.
and alive.
Yeah, so you're talking about some incredible strength. Incredible.
All right, everybody, that concludes this audio video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this and listen to this. And please like and subscribe and join us on Facebook as well. That's TAAPS, TAAPS, Texas Acknowledgement, Awareness, and Preservation of Sasquatch. And keep an eye out for December. Be putting out the best of audio clips. Sure to enjoy that as well. Thank you.